native horse at that period was comparatively small, but the importation of bigger stallions increased the size of the breed. By the 16th century, the breed had developed into a strong and powerful type, not only for war, but for agriculture, and thus was the foundation of the Shire horse laid. Now, it is the most popular heavy in England because it is docile, tractable, and can manage the biggest loads so easily.
When war broke out in 1914, Britain was still a country that relied heavily on horsepower. Between 1914 and 1918, the British Army took over 1 million horses to war.
Invented and developed in California by men who were faced with harvesting the great wheat crops of the 1880s. Their first efforts resulted in the perfection of the horse-drawn combined harvester. In 1886, Holt introduced the first machine to be driven by link belting and sprockets instead of gears. A few years later, he patented the first successful side hill combine. These combines soon...
Its supplies ranging from shells, ammunition and weapons to food, fuel and water. They were also useful for pulling heavy artillery and anti-tank weapons along the battlefield. On the Eastern Front, they were particularly useful in muddy terrain, able to push through without getting bogged down.
Like the American press became completely obsessed by the White Horse after 1941, and a campaign promised that one day the Emperor's horse would be captured, ridden through the streets of defeated Tokyo as a symbol of the humbling of Japan and its emperor. But what most Americans didn't realize was that there was not one White Horse, but 4, and the one most often seen on the newsreels wasn't even Japanese. It was, irony of ironies, American. The story of the White Horse begins at the Fitzgerald Ranch in Marion.
The maneuvers of Japan's military might. Each year since 1884, when Japan modernized her army, all branches demonstrate their efficiency in actual battle practice, under the eye of their royal commander-in-chief, and the taxpayers. These troops are typical of the 250,000 soldiers who compose the active forces. The men are between 20 and 23 years of age.
19 runners at the starting gate, and they're off. Close they bunch together as they turn onto the new course at the beginning of 2 1/4 grueling miles. Who's in front? Yes, it's Star Song. Ford Transport's in second place, and Parhelion, Gremlin and Salubrious all well there as we follow them round the most testing part of the race.
Just impossible to ride.
Hard pounding, but nothing seems to worry Star Song, still in the lead.
He was
Ford Transport's going gallantly close
17.1
behind.
hands, that's 5'9" at the shoulder. I mean, he's like a tall rhinoceros. And he behaved like one.
Grandfather heard about him, being what we call these days a horse whisperer, I guess. He went down and he used to go up and talk to the horse. He used to run his hands over him, he used to bag him. And he'd do this every time he got a spare moment. And eventually Bill allowed him to get up on him. He pig rooted, he bucked a bit, and Granddad stayed with him. And from then on, that was his horse.
As the fighting continues through the night, the Australians suffer heavy losses. The Turkish army advances to within a kilometre of Leeds. Then, with the battle in the Balance, an Australian legend is born.
In the middle of the battle of Romani was Bill the Bastard.
Even with Grandad on, he'd give a bit of a shy and a buck before they went into battle.
And he was Shanahan under orders, going up and down the lines, keeping his men in it. Now, to get the idea of the energy, the drive, the power of this horse, he went 5 or 6 hours running, and other horses were lasting 30 minutes.
21 races. He seemed at best to be a poor relation of his grandfather, and at worst, a caricature.
Seabiscuit's legs were too short. His neck was too thick. He was a big horse on little legs. He swung one foreleg out wildly, like he was swatting flies.
He had a mind of his own. He'd fight you. About halfway through the work, and Seabiscuit just stuck his toes in the ground, pulled right up. Just pulled right up. He said, I'm not going any further.
He was blessed
were cursed with, in horse terms, a high order of intelligence. He was like a juvenile delinquent.
A loser in his first 17
Seabiscuit leads by a length. Now Seabiscuit by a length and a half. Wolf has put away his whip. Seabiscuit by 3. Seabiscuit by 3. Seabiscuit is the winner by 4 lengths. And you never saw such a wild crowd. Seabiscuit the winner.